I want to discuss a video that Henry Gracie posted yesterday regarding using the straight arm lock in law enforcement. I'm one of the master instructors in the Gracie Survival Tactics course, GST, for law enforcement under Gracie University, and I also have over 21 years of law enforcement experience. I just retired last year from being a police officer after almost 22 years. And I've used the arm lock myself several times out in the field in my career with great success. And I want to discuss some of the comments that came up after he showed the video yesterday. One of the most common comments was, it's a great thing, unless, what if the person bites your leg? What if he bites your calf? Then it doesn't work anymore. Or what if the person pulls a knife or a gun or something like that? And those are all very valid points. And I want to kind of discuss some of those today in this video to kind of, give some insight on some of our perspectives, perspective from our side of using the arm lock, okay? First of all, I want to discuss using the straight arm lock that, like Henry mentioned in the video, we would prefer to just stay on top of the suspect first. Our arm lock is not the first go-to. It's not gonna be my first option. However, it does have its time and place. For instance, if he is pushing on me, I would much rather prefer to swim through his arms, maintain the top position, and wear this person out and not have to go and not lose my position in order just to get a submission, okay? But sometimes maybe the person's too big and strong and I can't hold the top position, or maybe I have an outer carrier vest, and when he goes to grab, swimming through his arms is not an option. And instead of losing the position itself, I still want to maintain control. So what I can do is I can then do this straight arm lock. But that's when some of the concerns came up in the comments, such as what if the person bites your leg? Okay, that's a very valid point, okay? And the first point I want to make on that is, if you tuck your heels into their head, into their body nice and tight, the way it should be done in the first place, it's going to be very difficult for him to be able to turn and get the right angle on my leg. Can you bite my leg right now? It's going to be very difficult to be able to even bite my leg as long as my heels are tucked. So rule number one, tuck your heels, okay? The next point I want to talk about, okay, is attack mode versus self-preservation mode. So what I mean by that is, for him to bite me, he has to be in attack mode. He has to consciously make that effort to bite my leg. And if he does that, and I start cranking on his arm, hyperextending his arm the opposite way that it's intended to go, now his brain is gonna switch to self-preservation mode, because he's gonna do anything he can to try to protect his arm and save his arm, including screaming. And when he screams, that of course opens his mouth, and now he can't bite anymore. But more importantly, his brain will switch from attack mode to self-preservation mode, and that keeps him from biting as well, okay? And the other option I wanna talk about is, what if he does pull a knife or a gun out on you in the middle of the fight? And that is always a possibility. And that's why we always have to remember rule number one of a fight, okay? Always remember rule number one, which is avoid the fight at all costs. We don't want to get in a fight with anyone, okay? Because here's the thing, the arm lock is only an option. It's just a tool we can use. Everything works and everything doesn't work. There's a time and place for all of it. The arm lock isn't the be all end all of every technique out there, okay? Otherwise that'd be the only technique we'd have to show. But it's not, okay? And just remember, the next point I want to make is it's a fight. Bad things happen. And that's why we have to remember rule number one, is because nothing is guaranteed. At any point during this fight, something bad can happen, a knife can be introduced, a gun can be introduced, and we have to be ready for that. We have to be ready to transition when the time calls for it, okay? And the fifth and last point I really want to make on this is a quote that Henry Gracie said back in the 90s when he was fighting a no-holds-barred fight against Oleg Tatarev. Henzo's backing up in the ring and he trips and falls, and Oleg Tatarev comes in after him. And then Henzo delivers an upward kick right to his face, knocking Oleg Tatarev out unconscious. And after Henzo moved in to finish the fight, the referee stops it because Oleg was out cold. And then the announcer came to Henzo during the interview and said, "Wow, you got really lucky with that kick." And Henzo just smiled, as he always does, and he says, "Yeah, you know what? The more I train, the luckier I get." And I always remembered that. And the thing you want to remember on that is, the last point is, go out there and train and watch your luck improve. Okay, so what I suggest you do is get online, go to gracieuniversity.com, and try to find a certified training center near you where you can learn details like this arm lock that we just went over today, as well as details of many other techniques to make things very practical. Our number one goal is for self-defense and what works on the street, and not just what works rolling around in the gym with your buddies, which is super fun and we love it. And same thing as tournaments. It's not just about fighting in tournaments. Those are all super fun too. Competing is super fun. But the idea is we want to make sure that what we're teaching law enforcement is something that's going to be very practical, something that's going to work on the street when the time really counts on it.